Good morning, everyone. This is James Cena Green, host of Let's Talk Destiny talk show and president and founder of A Mother's Cry. I'm coming to you early and loud this morning. Um, First of all, I want to tell you a little bit about A Mother's Cry. A Mother's Cry is providing social advocacy for mothers of incarcerated persons. We acknowledge that there are unique needs and specific responses that need to be addressed. And so we are using our voice as a way to speak out about these things. As many of you know, I've shared with you that over the time I have reached out and will continue to do so to some of our state elected officials and even local politicians, and maybe one or two has responded and showed interest and concern about what I'm trying to do. But one thing I know about humans, period, whether you're an elected official or not, is that people have a tendency to be concerned about things that affect them directly. And until it does impact them, they don't really pay a lot of attention to it. However, that doesn't change the fact that something needs to be done. And so we continue to be a voice for people who are feeling like they're not heard. And we continue to be seen on behalf of people who feel like they're not being seen. And so, as an advocate, the work does not stop, whether you're on a small level or a large stage, whatever you're advocating for, keep speaking out, keep being seen, keep being visible. And so today I'm coming to you to talk about some things that concern me as an advocate for incarcerated persons. And I always say, no matter why they're there, no matter what they did, whether they're guilty or innocent, because even though some of you don't want to accept it, there are innocent people in these prisons. Whatever the particular cases may be, there are still some basic human rights that every human being deserves to experience. And many times we find in these concrete plantations where these individuals are nothing more than property of the state and being treated as such. It is important that we realize that they need someone to speak for them when they cannot speak for themselves. I talk to mothers all the time who have children who are incarcerated, and the impact of the mass incarceration is hard to even describe. Um, we talk about this a lot. I don't think people really are paying attention to it, but the United States has the highest number of incarcerated persons in the whole world. And that says a lot about the mentality here of the system, um, where the whole lock them up, lock them up, lock them up thing is a response to pretty much everything. And so I want to talk specifically today about a couple of things that are disturbing me. There's so much about the system that disturbs me, but today I want to talk about um, basically how these inmates are locked down in these cells so many hours, even more lately, because of the supposed staff shortage in the Maryland State prison system. Um, so I mentioned to you before, back in May, I sent an email to several of our elected officials with a list of concerns that we as mothers have, or we as individuals, but since I speak for mothers, I sent a list of concerns. And I got a response. I got one response that says, I will forward this to somebody else. And then I got a response from the Secretary of the Department of Corrections telling me that she was forwarding my concerns to another gentleman. And then I got an email from that gentleman that was 2 pages of mostly nothing that had anything to do with what I initially contacted him about. And so, again, I replied that this is a perfect example of why people say they feel unheard and unseen, because you barely address anything that I said. And I guess it's just a standard reply that he sends out. He mentioned a conversation that he did have with me via email back during the pandemic when I was questioning the inadequate face mask that these prisoners were using during a major COVID outbreak. And so he referenced that, which again had nothing to do with what I'm talking about right now. So it just confirms for me the importance of us coming together and being a united voice, because when I speak up, even though I'm speaking for other people, it has a greater impact when there are other people joined, when I can have names of people, when I can have signatures of people that say, I'm in agreement with what you're doing or what A Mother's Cry is doing. And so if you would join me in this fight for the human rights of our incarcerated loved ones, that would be great. As I said, right now, one of my main concerns is how much time they're locked down. And these cells, as you know, these prisons, the buildings are concrete, which holds a lot of heat. There are stories in your news every day, if you look for them or you pay attention to them, of prisons throughout this country where inmates are getting extremely ill because of the heat. Some have even died because of the heat. Because imagine, as it was explained to me, that if it's 100 degrees outside, where we are in there, it's like 130 to 150. And my son said to me one time, and I repeat this whenever I remember it. He said, if you leave a dog in the car and you go in the store and you leave your dog in the car in this heat and you're reported to law enforcement, you can be arrested for that, for leaving that dog in that hot car. But we sit and sleep and eat in this heat where you can barely breathe. There are times when he says to me, I say, how are you doing? And he said, I'm moving as little as possible to try to deal with this heat. I don't care what crime a person has committed, whoever's child it is. You should not have to live in a situation where you can barely breathe because of the heat. In these concrete plantations, concrete holds heat. Then it's not like they have windows that they can open up. And forget about the air conditioning. The air conditioning is found in the offices of staff members, but in the areas where the incarcerated persons are, there is not air conditioning. And then I think I had mentioned to you, I think it was maybe 2 years ago now, that the inmates were allowed to purchase some small kind of air conditioning unit thing, and they never did get them. So when I was notified that my son did not get his air conditioning unit nor his money back, of course, I do what I do. And I talked to the warden and 2 or 3 other people until I found out that the company was no longer making the units or selling the units to the prison, whatever. And so they returned the money back to the Department of Corrections, the Maryland Department of Corrections. But the money was not returned to the inmates. Yeah, okay. So that's one of my main concerns right now is the amount of time that they're locked down and the heat, the overbearing heat that many of them having to deal with. We see it in the news, as I said, every day. You can look it up. I'm not making this up. Inmates are literally dying from heat in these state prisons. But the mass incarceration in the prison industrial complex, they're still making their money, so they're not going to do a whole lot to change anything. Another thing that I want to bring to your attention is that I have been informed that beginning in October, there will be an increase in the price of commissary items that the incarcerated persons buy. Already they're paying too much for that crap. In many cases, double of what we pay out here. So now they're going to raise the cost of the items while many of the inmates don't have money coming in. Everybody doesn't have family supporting them, sending them money or whatever. And then the ones that do work those little jobs, they barely make a couple dollars just doing that. So once again, the human rights violations, the right to be safe, to be in a safe environment, to eat healthy, to have water, fresh air, sunshine, all of these things, they're very seldom getting in this prison. And mostly, the battle cry is that we're short on staff. So there's either minimal movement or no movement for hours and hours and hours. It seems to me that when you already have people in a hostile environment, that you would want to try to do whatever you could do to make things a little less hostile. But that is not often what we see in our state prison systems. So a mother's cry is speaking out, but a mother's cry is only one voice. And I need you to join me as we speak out against these things. You don't have to have a child incarcerated to care about other people's children, to care about somebody other than yourself. Because mass incarceration and the prison industrial complex touches all of our lives. And by that, I mean, if you don't even have a family member that's incarcerated, you're still impacted by the cost of keeping them in there. So you're still impacted by mass incarceration. So I wanted to just jump in for a few minutes this morning before I get going on some other things to remind you that a mother's cry is a voice. And we are going to continue to be a voice, but your support would be greatly appreciated. Speak out when you hear about human rights violations. Don't just shake your head and say, oh, that's too bad, and keep moving. They need to hear from us. I'm going to continue to email these elected officials because they were elected to hear what I'm saying. Whether they respond or not, I'm going to keep on doing what I do. And prayerfully will reach someone that is concerned, legitimately concerned about their constituents enough to respond to the needs of the constituents. I know the attitude that a lot of people is, well, they committed a crime, they're in prison, too bad, they shouldn't have went there, they shouldn't have done, okay, well, whatever. I'm not talking to you because clearly you have no concept of, number one, that there are innocent people in prison, and number two, that human beings still deserve to be treated like human beings, no matter what they've done. And we have to show compassion and concern. And then we have family members of these people who are being affected. I've heard this saying for years, and I know many of you have too, that when you have a loved one that's doing time, you are doing time along with them. Because mothers are stressing because they want not able to send money to their loved one that's incarcerated, to make sure they have money on their books for commissary, which, as I said a few minutes ago, they're increasing the cost of the items in October by 10%. May not sound like a lot to you, but it is a lot to an incarcerated person who already is getting very little. So for whatever reason, they're raising the cost of the commissary items next month. And even though we know that the prison industrial complex is a multi-billion-dollar business, so they have plenty of money. They make plenty of money off these people. So we want to address that, and we want to address the heat situation. I'm reading every day, reading something different from different sources about the people, literally dropping dead in some of these prisons. Specifically, Texas has been in the news a lot for their prison systems and people who are getting very ill and dying from heat exhaustion. No cold water, no, it's not like you at home and you can say, oh boy, I'm hot, let me go get some water out the refrigerator. And so we need to be conscious of these things. I will be talking with individuals who have been in the prison system and have them share some of their experiences while they were there. We have to be more aware of what's going on around us, not just when it directly impacts us, but as a people. As a people, we are being targeted and being consumed by a system that is not designed to help us. So we have to help ourselves. All right. So I just wanted to drop in for a few minutes to share those few words with you from A Mother's Cry. Want to remind you that I am trying to provide social advocacy for mothers of those who are incarcerated and to be a voice for those who are incarcerated. If you would join me in this fight, I want to say I reached out this week, put a post on my page asking for some resources that I can give to some mothers who are reaching out to me for help. And for those of you who responded, there were a couple of you who inboxed me some information. I genuinely and publicly want to thank you. I won't say any names because everybody doesn't want their name like that out like that, but I thank you very much. I appreciate you for responding, because a lot of times I do feel like people are not listening to what I'm saying. And so the fact that you responded means more to me than I can tell you. And each one of those people that you gave me names and contact information for, I have spoken with them already and will continue to do so. So thank you again. All right. You all have a good day. Stay cool. Be safe. And let's keep each other lifted up. All right. Have a blessed day.